What's up, guys? Welcome to the Stats Free Sports channel. Let's get right into it. Let's discuss the Bengals and why I believe they'll be super active around draft time. So I'm not sure when it's going to be prior, during, or after the draft. I think the Bengals will be big moves and shakers around that time period. You can say Joe Mixon. You can say the right tackle who wants to be traded. I forgot his name. My mind just went blank on me. But this video is mainly going to pertain to two wide receivers, Tyler Boyd and Tee Higgins. I think one of those two guys will be moved around that time period. Now, I will lean towards Boyd. He's older, but Tee Higgins and Boyd are both on the last years of their contract with the Bengals, so either one could be moved. But I would definitely lean towards Boyd. But in this draft, I see two replacements. I'm kind of hedging my bet here. I see two replacements for each guy. The Tyler Boyd replacement would be Keyshawn Boutte, and then the Tee Higgins replacement would be the West Virginia wide receiver Bryce Wheaton. I can see one of those two guys being drafted by the Bengals. Obviously, depends on which one is moved, if any guys moved. But I can see a situation as well that they draft one of those guys and keep Higgins and Boyd for one last year, and then they'll pick one, whoever they're gonna decide to keep long term, which probably will be Higgins. But you never know. We have seen situations where they let the young guy walk, like the Titans and AJ Brown. We almost seen Debo leave last year, for the Niners. So it just depends on how they view it, how they want to play it, because you still got to pay Jamar Chase long term. You still got to pay Joe Burrow long term. You still try to keep your team intact, so it's going to be tough. And that's the thing about not winning early. The Bengals were right there. And I could definitely say, I'm not a Bengals fan, don't get me wrong, but sorry speaking out of turn, but if they would have won 2 years ago against the, who did they play? I forgot now. Who did the Bengals play? My memory's so bad. The Rams. The Rams. Yeah. If they would have beat the Rams, I really think Bengals fans wouldn't mind T Higgins being gone. If they were to win 2 years ago, and then hey, we don't want to pay Higgins, let's trade him, and let's get another young guy like a Bryce Wheaton Ford or someone else, whoever, and let's keep Tyler Boyd and let's make it work with those guys. I think Bengals fans would be fine. But when you win, when you don't win, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to really hurt your team in that way by trading T Higgins. But I do think it is possible. He's young. He's a stud. He should be number one guy sometime in the future. But it's tough when you have a guy like Jamar Chase, and that could affect his money long term also. So not just the team might not want Higgins, or might see a different future for Higgins, but Higgins might too. You never know. People want to be their own stars too. Being a part of a good team is great, but having that money, that long-term success for your family and future endeavors is also great too. So I could definitely see a situation where Higgins might be gone. But as I said earlier, I will lean towards Boyd. Boyd, 28 years old, good slot receiver who can definitely play in a lot of places. I really like Minnesota. If he were to be traded, pair him up with KJ Osborne and Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. That'd be a pretty good offense, and I still think the Vikings should probably go young as well. Bring in someone behind them if that were the case. But I would love that fit, honestly. So yeah, it's a lot of moves to be out there, man. T Higgins to the Giants, that's something that's possible. It was floated out there for a while now. So I can definitely see things happen. Also with Joe Mixon, as I mentioned earlier, Joe Mixon. I've been on an all off season, even prior to the nonsense going on with his two off the field incidents he had earlier. I said then, I think Mixon could be gone. His cap hit was about, or it is about, I think, 8 to 10 million, somewhere around that range. I forgot the exact number now, but yeah, I was saying this prior to all the incidents going on. So I've been on the same vibe. I'm not going to change that up. I think Mixon will be cut, probably cut now, not traded. But I did have him being traded um, in a couple of videos I did early on in the off-season process. So, things like that, man. The Bengals obviously didn't pay Jesse Bates. The Bengals are notorious also for being an organization who not want to pay their big name or their better players. Carl Lawson left. A bunch of other guys left as well. So, and this goes back to the the Chad Ochocinco days. Chad Johnson days and Carson Palmer and TJ Houshmandzadeh, all those guys. It goes back to those days about the Bengals being cheap, a cheap franchise. So I think it's possible Tee Higgins is gone. But as I said, Boyd to me is the main guy. But Keyshawn Butte, I think he directly compares to a guy like Boyd though. 5'11", 185, good size on him, good speed on him, and he was once one of the number one receivers in his class prior to this season. He was that good. He was deemed, he was looked at by everyone to be that good, and just a down year with LSU. Also, the off the field issue that's not been disclosed yet. Why he missed the bowl game, so that kind of brings him down some. So but Butte is a top talent. He was a top talent. I think he'll still be a very good player. Just because things didn't work out his way this season, I think and just off the field stuff might have pushed him down some. But he's still a top talent. He really is, man. So I think that's something valuable there to look at for Bengals fans, even if they keep Boyd and Higgins for this year and ride out for the rest of the season. I think he would be someone you could probably get in day 2, maybe even day 3, and pick him up, and he'll be your future starter in that Tyler Boyd role. Also looking at the big boy DK Metcalf Jr. and Bryce Ford Wheaton out of West Virginia, 6'4", 221, and he had a 40 time of I think 4.38. 4.38. That big boy is moving. That's a big man. That's a big man who can blow by defenders, who can give you that same Tee Higgins role. So as I said earlier, this game is about, you know, staying cheap but still having a winning situation. And I think if they don't want to, if they do want to stay cheap and not pay Higgins long term or a big contract, they could definitely get rid of him and target a guy like Bryce Ford Wheaton, who gives you, as I said, a similar field. He's not as polished as Higgins is. Higgins definitely came out better in college than Wheaton did, but you never know how fast these guys can develop. You have a great quarterback in Joe Burrow. You have a very good receiving room. As I said, if Higgins is gone, you have Boyd and Chase. So that definitely adds up there to taking a lot of pressure off a guy like Wheaton, who come in right away, being a big body speedster and can beat you down the field. When you have one-on-ones with him and the safety, or him and whoever else, whoever the other corner is, when you have Chase getting all the attention or Boyd getting all the attention. So I think it's possible. I think anything's possible. We've seen young guys be dealt. We've seen vets be dealt all the time last year of their contract. So, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I'm definitely going to hedge my bets and see one of them will be moved. But definitely a situation where they might not be. Or maybe at the NFL trade deadline, Boyd could be going to another contender or something. If they do draft, let's say, for example, if the Bengals do draft Butte, Boyd gets sent, like I said, to Minnesota, for example, or to Tennessee, then because Butte is playing so well, he was great in training camp, he's playing well, start the season, you don't really need Boyd anymore, and you're not gonna pay him long term anyway. You might as well trade him. So something like that can definitely be possible, and they keep everyone for just the start of the season, and then see what happens from that point on. Or they could keep them for the full season, because like I said, they are a top contending team. They need the best team possible. Injuries do happen. Why not just keep them and let them walk during the off season? So that is possible too. But I definitely think I got an inkling, I got a feeling, I got a spark coming around that I really feel like Boyd or Higgins could be moved. There's been no word on Higgins' extension yet. I'm not sure if they're close, if they're far away. We have no clue as fans. Like I'm not a Falcons fan, I'm a fan of NFL in general, but I've been keeping tabs on Higgins all off season, and there's been no real talk. Last time I have heard talk about it, at least they weren't that close. So it's like, it definitely gives you some cause to pause there and give you something to think about. Can Higgins be moved? I'm not a fan of PFF. I'm a fan of them, but I'm not a fan of analytics or numbers. But PFF has been saying all off season, they've been screaming it from the hilltops. They still think Higgins might be traded too. So I'm not alone. I'm not alone in thinking that, and a few other folks too as well. When things get silent, that's when things get scary. Also, when there's no news on you and your contract talks, unless you're like a primetime quarterback, but we know for a fact Joe Burrow deal is going to get done. We know for a fact Herbert's deal is going to get done, so when it gets quiet for skilled players, that's when things get a little scary. How things are going. We have no clue. We haven't heard any words from Higgins. We haven't heard any words from the Bengals organization. So it's tough. It is tough for Bengals fans to see what's going on and not know what's going on as of right now. But I do think there's a possibility that someone could woo the Bengals into trading away Tee Higgins for a first round pick and maybe a no third or something else, third or fourth or a player or something. So we'll see where it goes. There are teams that are wide receiver needy, and they would love to have a big guy who ready to have his own team, his own receiving group. Being the number one guy, being the leader, like Tee Higgins might be ready to be in the stage of his career. So you never know. You never know, man. Everything looks good, but you never know how a player or his friends or his family or his agents feel about how he's, being used or where he's at right now in his career. You never know. So just throwing it out there, see what sticks. But I do think one of these guys will be moved during during the NFL draft period. Maybe the trade deadline that far back in next November, but I think the draft is definitely something to look at for guys like Tee Higgins and Tyler Boyd. That's it for the video, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.